Hi guys, my name is Trinity, and if you are here today, you must be here to talk about books because that's why I'm here. I have to say, my last week of life has been quite busy. I have had company all week, and so I haven't had time to sit down and record videos, but this is a video that I'm sure so many of you have been excited for me to finally put out. I know it has been requested a few times because during the Olympic readathon, I did a rapid fire recommendations video, and people have been asking me, when am I going to be doing a rapid fire recommendations video for SFF, Oasis, Badge Bingo? So that is what I am here to do today. So buckle in because we are going to rapid fire through these recommendations. So our first badge is the Monsters badge. Now, I have not yet picked the book that I will be reading for the Monsters badge. However, I do have 4 recommendations for you. The obvious one being The Lord of the Rings, because we have orcs and that just says monsters to me. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. This is a young adult trilogy that features quite a few different types of monsters. CIRCE by Madeline Miller. We're dealing with the gods create monsters. There you go. The Warded Man by Peter V. Brett. This is the first book of the Demon cycle. Demons are monsters. The next badge is a book published in 2021. I will be reading The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. Some rapid fire recommendations for you would be Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. You guys know how much I loved that one. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Yes, I recommend it, even though it's not the book for me. The Pariah by Anthony Ryan. You guys saw that coming. Hall of Smoke by H.M. Long. Such a good book. Now for the LGBTQ plus badge. I will be reading The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is one of the books that we will be reading for our read-along, so I just went ahead and plugged it in for this one. But I would also recommend The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, especially if you like romance, because this is very romance heavy. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I haven't read it myself, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. And Foundry Side by Robert Jackson Bennett. Now for the RPG badge. I will be choosing a book that I own from one of my BioWare books. That would be Dragon Age or Mass Effect, because those books are based on an RPG game. But you could pick anything BioWare, D&D, Call of Cthulhu, Forgotten Realms, or you could pick up the book The Engineer. Now, I have read this book and it is self-published, but it is based off an RPG game. And the cute thing about this book is that the author met his wife via this RPG game and wrote their story. So it's very cute. And I highly recommend it. I gave it 3 stars when I read it based on some dialogue issues, but I still think it's good. Now, for swordless fantasy, I will be reading Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett because, as you guys know, I read Foundry Side at the beginning of last month. And so I am very excited to continue with that series. Next would be The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. Now, this is a very popular series that I plan to read next year. So I'm adding it as a recommendation because I will also be reading it. The House in the Cerulean Sea, TJ Klune. It's swordless fantasy. I haven't read it myself. Everybody else seems to love it. I just don't think it's going to be up my alley, but this could definitely fit your swordless fantasy if it's a book you're interested in. The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. Now, this book can feature in a couple of different badges, the Thievery badge being the main one, but I wanted to put it here because there's not a lot of swordless fantasy out there, so I needed to plug this one in here so that you guys could know if you want to read The Lies of Locke Lamora, it's swordless fantasy. And Fireborn by Rosaria Munda, which is young adult, dragons, political intrigue, all sorts of wonderful things. Now for the self-pub badge, I will insert my picture that I took not too long ago of the self-published books that I own that I still need to read. It's not all of them, but it'll give you a great idea of books to choose from, or books that I will be choosing from. But I also have a couple that I definitely want to recommend to everyone, and you guys probably know the first of those is going to be Voice of War by Zach Argyle. One of my favorite books that I've read this year. Loved it so much. Everything I love about fantasy. Highly, highly recommend. Winds of Strife by Yuji Gutman. I hope I said that right. This is a book I've had on my Audible for way too long and still need to read, but all of my friends keep gushing about, so I'm very, very excited to read it. Nightfall by Daniel Barnett. I just read this one in October and I loved it. They are short novellas, so if you need a novella to get you through, go ahead and pick up Nightfall. Of Honey and Wildfires by Sarah Chorn. This book is a little dark, a little heartbreaking, and so stinking charming. I loved it so much. And the covers. I will be inserting a picture. These covers are so gorgeous. It is the start of a series, but so worth it. Writing is beautiful. Now for coming of age, you know those aren't my favorite types of stories, but I will be reading The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman is an author that I'm trying to give a second chance, so everybody keeps telling me I'm going to love this book, so that's definitely the book that I will be picking up for this. But some rapid fire recommendations would definitely be Dune. I think that is one of the epitome coming of age novels. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. The Prince of Thorns, I would definitely recommend, and this is going to be coming up again later, but it's definitely a coming of age story. Just a very dark coming of age story. And Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now you guys know I don't like the first book of this trilogy, but I absolutely love the follow-ups to it and I can't wait to continue. But Red Rising is also one of the books that we will be tackling for the read-along. Next we have the Epic Fantasy Badge. You guys know Epic Fantasy is not quite my wheelhouse. I want to love it, but there's so many things about it that I don't love. But I have chosen The Emperor's Blades by Brian Staveley. But you guys can go for Farseer, which is actually going to be in part of our read-along as well. Warbreaker, a standalone epic fantasy by Brandon Sanderson. The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. And I do actually have this book on my TBR alongside The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. I am planning to start them and try them, and hopefully I will love them. But those are two epic fantasies that I am planning to tackle. The Undead Badge. So this one is hard for me to actually fulfill because if there's a book about undead, I've read it. So if you guys have some recommendations for me for the Undead Badge, I would highly appreciate it. But some recommendations I can give to you if you want a lighter read, I would recommend Rot and Ruin by Jonathan Mayberry. Those books are super cute. Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. And Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. Now for the Found Family Badge. This is a trope I absolutely adore. Can't get enough of it. And of course, I'm going to be going with the third book of the Athena Club, which is The Sinister Mystery of the Mesmerizing Girl by Theodora Goss. Love these girls. Love this series. It's so good, so fun, and I just love the found family. It is so good, so good. Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. There is a small found family trope in this, but I absolutely adore the found family. Anyway, even though it's just a few people and it's not central to the theme of the book, but the found family that is there is so good. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. All Systems Red by Martha Wells. There's definitely a found family trope in this series. And The Bone Maker by Sarah Beth Durst. Now for the pirate badge, I will be reading Mad Ship by Robin Habb. I'm very excited to continue with my live ship traders journey. So looking forward to that quite a bit. And then the recommendations I would give are Red Seas Under Red Skies, which again, I will be reading next year by Scott Lynch. All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace, which is a young adult, but also very good. The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker, again on my reading list for next year. And Crossbones by Kimberly Vale, which again is on my reading list for next year. I'm just trying to get you guys to buddy read all these with me. Next we have Animal Companions, and I will be going with Hounded by Kevin Hearn because I have been dying to start the Iron Druid series, and so we have the first book of that series. Recommendations would definitely be Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, Malice by John Gwynne, The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart, and I will actually be reading The Bone Shard Emperor here in the next few days. Daughter of the Blood by Anne Bishop, which is the first of another fantasy series that I will be reading next year. Standalone, fantasy, or sci-fi, I have not chosen which book I'm actually going to be reading this. I'm waffling between a couple, and it's probably going to be The Spaceman of Bohemia, but I'm not exactly sure. But my recommendations would be Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This was a consensus on the Discord, so not necessarily my recommendation, but a recommendation from the Discord. House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. If I can plug this book anywhere, I'm going to. The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang. Now, this is a very divisive book, but I still recommend giving it a try. Winter's Orbit by EYERINA Maxwell is a standalone sci-fi that centers heavily around romance, and a gay romance at that. So if romance is what you are looking for, highly recommend this book. The Thievery Badge. Now, you guys know me. You know that this is my jam, Thieves and Assassins. And again, I don't know what book to pick because these are the books that I just want to read all of them. So I have to figure out which one I'm going to put in this slot. It might be The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner because I just bought it, but that also means I might go ahead and read it before the end of the year. But I'm going to be recommending that one because, again, a book I plan to read. Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. V.E. Schwab's not my favorite, but there's a lot of people who do like this series. And Grimdark. I will be reading The Black Company by Glenn Cook. I will be reading the First Law trilogy with the Discord when we start our read-along. But some others would be Beyond Redemption by M.R. Fletcher. The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Baker. And one of my favorite series, Blackwing by Ed McDonald. Next would be the Bad Bitch Badge. And I will be reading Poison Study by Maria Snyder. I have been dying to read this for quite some time, and I happen to know that the main character is a bit of a badass. And assassins. Do I need to say anything else? But I would highly recommend Among Thieves by M.J. Kuhn, Velocity Weapon by Megan E. O'Keefe, which is part of our read-along for next year, Graceling by Kristen Cashore, and Black Sun by Rebecca Browenhorse. And she fits into the Indigenous badge as well, which Rebecca Rowanhorse is the only SFF Indigenous author that I know of. So for that badge, I would recommend Rebecca Rowanhorse or Stephen Graham Jones, because those are the two that I know of that focus on fantastical elements in their writing. Even though Stephen Graham Jones is horror, he does kind of tie in the paranormal into it, and I think it is fantastic. We do have a few other badges that I can't really give rapid fire recommendations for, but if you want to steal any of these books, you can use the borrowed badge and steal any of the books that I have put on this list. If you guys want a recommendation for my favorite book, you've seen it. It's back there, Bloodsong, Anthony Ryan. And there are a few others that will take a little bit of research to find, such as a book that only has 25 reviews. But this is the rapid fire recommendations for the SFF Oasis Discord, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some books that you would like to read. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video. And don't forget, the Discord is in my socials links. Bye!